Can I please invite you to adopt the agenda? Any objection? No. Thank you. The agenda is adopted. Dear colleagues, we will consider the supplementary items that have been referred to this committee, and I would like to give floor to the main sponsor of the draft resolution on supplementary item 16, which talks about microplastic and nanoplastic pollution, drafted by a Canadian member of the delegation to the PA, Mr. John Aldag. And I would like to also underline that this draft resolution has been drafted jointly with Kugler-Gudrun, Madame Kugler-Gudrun. She is also co-sponsor of this important supplementary item. So before giving floor to Mr. Aldag, I would like to thank you, John, for your tireless efforts. You have been very active in our committee since our winter session in Vienna, and I'm very happy to see you here. And please, you have the floor. You can move on your supplementary item, and then just briefly inform about the main issues that are you're going to discuss with us. And I hope that we have also some speaker lists here, and then we will start debate on the supplementary item. Please, John, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I'd like to compliment you on the excellent conference that you held in Azerbaijan earlier this year. It was, again, a much needed discussion that that was important to have, and I appreciate that. I'd also like to thank our rapporteur for her inputs and insights into this resolution. It was greatly appreciated, so thank you, Dr. Kugler. The supplementary item that I put forward expands on paragraph 29 from the rapporteur's report that we looked at this morning. And this very much looks at the role and impacts of microplastics and nanoplastic pollution on the planet. By adopting this supplementary item, the Parliamentary Assembly would, for its first time, include a resolution on plastic pollution in its annual declaration. In my opinion, this would not only signal the importance of addressing the impacts of plastic pollution, but would also draw attention to the specific challenges of microplastic and nanoplastic pollution. In recent years, attention to issues relating to micro and nanoplastic pollution has been amplified by growing efforts to stop or reduce waste generally, as well as research reporting the presence of microplastics in foodstuffs, including seafood and drinking water. Scientists anticipate that plastic pollution will continue to rise and reach levels as high as 80 million tons per year by 2040. Most of the plastics that form this pollution will degrade into micro and nanoplastics, which humans can both inhale and ingest. A 2019 report by the Science Advice for the Policy by European Academies confirmed that microplastics are already present in the air, as well as in soil and sediment, freshwater, seas, and oceans, as well as plants and animals, including humans. As a result, they're found in several components of the human diet. This is especially concerning as we know too little about the potential long-term and irreversible risks that nanoplastics and microplastics carry for both ecosystems and human health. In this respect, while this SI acknowledges the growing body of knowledge examining the presence, source, and environmental and human health impacts of micro and nanoplastics, it also urges OSCE participating states to fund research to further develop this knowledge and address gaps in our understanding. As a few examples, research is required to better understand the presence, concentration, and behavior of nanoplastics, which are very difficult to detect and measure, and the potential risks associated with endocrine disrupting chemicals contained in micro and nanoplastics and the potential bioaccumulation of these harmful products. The SI also highlights national and international initiatives to address micro and nanoplastic pollution. For example, it welcomes the recent adoption of the United Nations Environment Assembly Resolution 514, which calls for the establishment of an international legally binding treaty to control and reduce plastic pollution and waste, including microplastics. In terms of more narrowly focused initiatives, it recognizes the significant role of tire abrasion in microplastic pollution and offer some courses of action to reduce this source of pollutants. And again, I'd like to thank the rapporteur for her excellent insights into the tire pollution issue that was contained in this SI. Lastly, the SI highlights that our unsustainable patterns of consumption and production pose an important barrier to addressing microplastic pollution. To tackle this issue, the first step must be to implement strong measures to reduce our overall plastic consumption. Therefore, colleagues, I'm asking that you support the supplementary item, and I ask for your ongoing collaboration as we, as an overall OSC community, work together to address the pervasive emerging environmental issue of micro and nanoplastic pollution. Thank you.
Thank you, dear John. So, dear colleagues, now I open floor for debates. As I already mentioned, we have the list of speakers. If you don't mind, I'd like to ask you to limit to 3 minutes for each speaker. And I would like to give the floor first to Ms. Deirdre Brooke from United Kingdom, to be followed by Ms. Anna Lichman of Ukraine. Madam Brooke, please, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I am extremely pleased to support this resolution. It's increasingly clear microplastics and nanoplastics have wide-ranging implications for public health, food and water security and sustainability, with potential risks of those plastic particles polluting our bodies and our planet. In addition, the process of extracting and creating them emits huge amounts of greenhouse gases. There are promising indications of progress at the United Nations towards that global treaty on plastic. It's encouraging to see strong business support for stringent regulatory measures as well. However, to achieve a treaty that aims to end plastic pollution by 2040, it is crucial for all countries to rally behind these efforts. And another challenge, of course, will be garnering support from the fossil fuel industries for the treaty's provisions. So it is vital we exert pressure on our own governments, as well as in international fora such as this. Last year, Scotland became the first nation of the UK to ban many of the most problematic single-use plastics. This made it an offence for businesses to provide items such as plastic cutlery and plates, as well as food containers made of extended polystyrene. And despite what might have sounded a bit like doomsday scenarios predicted by opponents, that was a quick and effective switch virtually from day one. And that policy aligned Scotland with the EU Single-Use Plastics Directive, helping us move towards a circular economy. The Scottish Government has a target of recycling 70% of waste by 2025, exceeding EU targets, and matching the EU target for all plastic packaging to be economically recyclable or reusable by 2030. And despite what is sometimes claimed by politicians, measures aimed at addressing our throwaway culture also enjoy public support. Over 3/4 of people in Scotland express concern about the excessive use of single-use items and packaging, with about 2/3 of people supporting further measures. I'm certainly hopeful that if passed, this will help this supplementary item will help to drive progress domestically, while we also all seek out opportunities for collaboration on an international scale. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Madam Brooke. Now I'd like to give the floor to Ms. Anna Lichman of Ukraine, to be ready, Senator Gigi Oster of Canada. Madam Lichman, please, you have the floor.
Thank you. Dear colleagues, unfortunately, I didn't have a chance to speak yesterday, so I want to underline Ukraine's general support of the resolution of General Committee of Economic Affairs, Science, Technology and the Environment. There is no doubt the importance of issues raised, such as uncovering the consequences of COVID-19 pandemic, microplastic pollution, impact of artificial intelligence in the technology of society, the development of clean energy, and consequences of unprovocated military aggression of the Russian Federation against Ukraine. Delving into the issues, I want to draw your attention to the following problems. The military aggression of the Russian Federation destroyed about 40% of Ukrainian economy, but already today the concepts of economic recovery have been developed, and experts even are debating which approach is better. But there are problems I want to emphasize today. This is ecocide, by the explosion of Kakhovka Dam, chemical and biological pollution of the Dnieper River and nearby territories, pollution of desolations and of the Black Sea. Not repairable damage of forests and biosphere reserves inhabited by wild and rare animals and birds caused by hostilities. The use by Russian Federation of prohibited types of weapons such as phosphorus bombs. Phosphorus pollution are already affected not only people but ecosystem, water and soil. Accidents such as release of ammonia on the Kharkiv region due a pipeline explosion, mining. Today, south and east of the Ukraine is without doubt the most mine-contaminated territory on our planet, which brings not repairable damage, just used as mine. Sea mines destroyed by Black Sea ecosystem. Demining can take years. A significant amount destroyed military equipment, the disposal of which is difficult. And the problem of the first order is the threat of explosion at the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant by Russian forces. There is not a complete list of threats caused by the military aggression of Russian Federation, but already now all this has impact to the states of the environment in the Black Sea region countries and the whole Europe. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Madam Lynchman. And I would like to give now floor to Senator Gigi Oster of Canada to be ready by Mr. Douglas from United States of America. Please, Madam, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm speaking today in support of the supplementary item on microplastic and nanoplastic pollution presented by my colleague, Mr. Aldag. This SI touches on issues that are at the core of the OSCE second dimension, the strong links between effective protection of the environment and favorable outcomes in economic development and public health. The SI clearly outlines the challenge that the accumulation of microplastic and nanoplastic pollution presents to our populations and to the environment, particularly our planet's oceans. The SI also provides a roadmap of the steps that can and must be taken to mitigate and, where possible, reverse the damage. Microplastic accumulation is not only an ecological issue, but it is a threat to human health, food safety, and food security. They may be added to products, inhaled, or ingested through drinking water and the consumption of food. They accumulate in the human body and can then pose numerous risks to our health and well-being. In his message on World Environment Day last month, UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres issued a call to reduce plastic pollution. He stated that with a global effort to limit single-use plastics, recycle plastic waste, and diversify away from plastic, it would be possible to reduce plastic pollution by 80% by the year 2040. Colleagues, this is possible. The resources and technologies necessary to bring about a circular economy, one with little or no plastic waste, already exist. What we need now is the political will to use them. We need further government action to eliminate or limit single-use plastics from manufacturing processes and to implement better waste management systems on land and sea to keep plastic waste out of our environments. The SI also underscores how tire abrasion from motor vehicles is another factor in the release of microplastics. Reducing this form of pollution will require legislators to push for higher tire durability standards, more sustainable production methods from the automotive industry, and changes to city and road design to reduce the volume of microplastics going into the environment. As parliamentarians, we have a duty to be a part of the solution and to advise our governments on developing regulatory frameworks to solve these problems. Colleagues, I urge you to support this SI, and I look forward to ongoing discussions about cultivating sustainable economies, clean environments, and healthy populations. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Senator Gigi Osler. And I'd like to give the floor to Mr. Doggett from United States of America. Mr. Dogger will be last speaker in my list. Please,
Thank you very
Mr.
much.
Dogger, you have the floor.
I certainly commend our colleague from Canada on introducing this important resolution. As our waterways overflow with plastic and our bodies are invaded by microplastics, now is the time for urgent action. Particularly important is the global treaty currently being negotiated because it's important that all parts of the world participate in a problem that is truly global in scope. On April 21st of this year, the Environmental Protection Agency in the United States issued a draft national strategy to prevent plastic pollution. And while this is a constructive step, last week I led a number of colleagues in Congress in calling on the Environmental Protection Agency to move more forcefully. The United States has lagged at a time that the plastic industry has had a marketing blitz on some of these issues. The entire life cycle of plastics, from production to disposal, pose serious threats to the health of our planet and the health of every human being on it. There are few human beings that today, if properly tested, would not indicate their bodies already contain microplastics, almost from the moment of birth. We need to eliminate the procurement of single-use plastics, as several countries have already done, reduce the procurement or eliminate it of polychloride and polystyrene, particularly these cups that are often full of coffee and only convey more microplastics, and to take a look at the new chemicals that are coming on the market and assure that those communities that are next door to where the production is occurring have a right to know about the chemicals that are being produced nearby, as well as to look at the Clean Water Act and what more might be done to remove microplastics from our water supply. I think that we need only look at this conference to see that there are alternatives to plastic. As we saw with our room keys, that plastic is not fantastic, and certainly it's not. There are alternatives that can be beneficial economically, but looking for ways to reduce our reliance on plastic and all the negative effects associated with microplastics on our health is very important. So I'm pleased we can move forward with this resolution. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Doggett, for your contribution. I also thank all who took the floor and made their contributions. Dear colleagues and friends, now we will move to consider the amendments submitted to the draft resolution. We have 6 valid amendments that have been tabled, and copies of the amendments have been made available. We have also had on manuscript sub-amendment, copies of which are available outside the room. As with the previous one, I will call the proposer of the amendment first, and then we'll call an opponent of the amendment. And then, of course, I will ask our sponsor for his opinion. Following that, I shall put the amendment to the vote. I will kindly ask all speakers to limit her or his speech to 1 minute. We are also required to vote on every paragraph to which there are no amendments. Now we will come to paragraph 1 to 5. Does anyone want a separate vote of any of these paragraphs? No. Thank you. So we will take paragraph 1 to 5 together. Anyone against? No one. Those in favor? Thank you. Abstentions? No abstentions. Paragraph 1 to 5 agreed. Now I call Mr. Lecamp from France to propose Amendment 1 to insert a new paragraph after paragraph 5. Mr. Lecamp, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. Merci, John, pour ce point supplémentaire que la France votera avec enthousiasme. Car comme nombre d'entre vous le savent, l'ONU pilote depuis 2022 les négociations pour un traité international pour mettre fin à la pollution plastique. La deuxième session de négociation qui s'est tenue à Paris du 29 mai au 2 juin a permis, après des négociations certes difficiles entre les représentants des 175 pays, de donner mandat à l'unanimité à M. Gustavo Meza Quadra Velasquez, président du comité international des négociations, pour rédiger une première version de l'accord qui sera discuté au Kenya en novembre prochain. Nous avons une opportunité historique de signer aujourd'hui un accord qui soit à la fois ambitieux et contraignant pour 2025. Cet amendement vise donc à ce que nous marquions ici, à l'OCDE, tous ensemble, notre soutien. Je vous remercie.
Thank you. Does anyone wish to speak against Amendment 1? No, I don't see anyone. So I now ask Mr. Aldag, and please, John, you have the floor.
I support this amendment and thank my colleague from France for putting it forward.
Thank you very much. Now I shall put Amendment 1 to the vote. Will all those in favor of Amendment 1 please raise their voting cards? Thank you. Against? Abstentions? No abstentions. Amendment, sorry, one abstention. Amendment 1 is adopted. Now, we go to paragraph 6 to 24. Does anyone want a separate vote of any of these paragraphs? No, thank you. So we will take paragraph 6 to 24 together. Anyone against? No. Those in favor? Thank you. Abstentions? No abstention. Thank you very much. Paragraph 6 to 24, agreed. Thank you. Now I call Mr. Achour from Belgium to propose Amendment 2 to insert a new paragraph after paragraph 24. Mr. Achour, you have the floor.
Apparently he's not here.
He's not here. So maybe second
Anyone?
sponsor, anyone?
Does anyone else wish to move Amendment 2?
Does anyone wish to move Amendment 2? Who put his or her signature? Amendment 2. No one.
Just,
So in that case, we cannot consider this amendment.
Can I?
Yeah. You have a signature? Please.
Yes, I do have a signature.
Yes, please.
I think this is a suggestion for our colleague, Ben Ancourt from Belgium, right?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. So, yeah, this is the one. So what he's asking, actually, he's recalling the adoption of Directive EU 2019/904 of the European Parliament and of the Council of 5th June 2019 on the reduction of the impact of certain plastic products on the environment and its transposition into the domestic legislation of member states. I've signed that, and I think it's a very good proposal, and I think it should be adopted. And I'm so sorry, but I'm sure he's somewhere else doing something else at the moment, yeah.
Thank you, dear Irina. Okay, it is according to our rule. So anyone wishes to take a floor and speak against this amendment? No. Then I will ask Mr. Aldag for his opinion.
I also support this amendment.
Thank you. So I will now put this amendment to the vote and ask if anyone is in favor of this amendment. Please raise your voting cards. In favor? Thank you very much. Against? Abstentions? No. Amendment 2 is adopted. We now come to paragraph 25 to 28. Does anyone want a separate vote of any of these paragraphs? No. So I will take paragraph 25 to 28 together and ask if anyone against this. No one. Please raise your voting cards if you are in favor. Thank you. Abstentions? No abstention. Paragraph 25 and 28 adopted too. Okay, we come now to Amendment 3 by Mr. Lecam from France. Mr. Lecam has proposed a manuscript sub-amendment to his own amendment, copies of which are available in room. But as far as I understood, we need some additional information. For that purpose, I want to ask Marco Bonavalli to take the floor.
Yes, thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Apologize to interrupt the flow of the discussion. Just to clarify that the amendment, the sub-amendment, or the manuscript amendment that you have in your hands, there's actually a typo, so a mistake. And I think the moment it will be then introduced and explained, it will be obvious. But the purpose of it is to add some text and a word and remove a word from the actual amendment. So the word intentional, which is now, you can see on the text, should actually be removed from the proposal, the amendment. That's the purpose of the sub-amendment. So just keep in mind that, as it will be explained, the word intentional is actually to be removed from the amendment itself. But please, if you have any need for further information, let us know.
Thank you, dear Marco. Now I would like to give the floor to Mr. Lecam from France to speak to his amendment and the sub-amendment. Please, Mr. Lecam, you have the floor.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. Alors, cet amendement souhaite tout simplement compléter l'alinéa 29 du point supplémentaire pour souligner que l'enjeu des microplastiques ajoutés ne s'arrête pas aux seuls produits cosmétiques ou de soins. Et pour reprendre les remarques du docteur Kugler ce matin sur l'amendement à son texte, sur les résultats en particulier qu'elle a obtenus à l'Université de Vienne, nous souhaitons rajouter dans ce sous-amendement en premier le produit pneus, les pneus, et ensuite retirer le mot intentionnel, comme elle a remarqué, au bénéfice du doute, en considérant qu'à ce stade aujourd'hui, en 2023, l'industrie ne fait pas ça de manière intentionnelle, même si dans le futur, il y a un moment donné, il faudra se poser la question. Donc, rajout du mot pneu et enlever le mot intentionnel. Je vous remercie. Ah, pardon. Et puis, quand même, je voudrais préciser que dans l'Union européenne, dont j'ai les chiffres, l'ensemble de l'Union européenne, il y a entre 75 000 et 30 000 tonnes de microplastiques qui se trouvent chaque année dans la nature. Pour combattre ce phénomène, l'Agence européenne des produits chimiques proposait d'interdire, au-delà des cosmétiques et des produits soins, les ajouts dans les peintures, les engrais. Donc là, on rajoute les pneus qui sont le premier polluant, le matériel médical, les produits phytosanitaires et les détergents. Je vous remercie.
Thank you very much. As you know, in accordance with paragraph 10 of Rule 22 of our Rules of Procedure, the sub-amendment cannot be considered if there are any objections to it. So I would like to ask if there are any objection to this, to sub-amendment being considered. Any objection? No. So does anyone wish to speak against the sub-amendment? No, this is not the case. So I now will ask Mr. Allah's opinion of that sub-amendment. Please join.
Yes, first of all, I'd like to thank my colleague from France for the sub-amendment. For those who were in the room this morning, we heard the rapporteur speak to the issue of the original amendment, and I believe that this addresses the concern that was put forward at that time based on evidence provided by experts, and so I fully support this sub-amendment.
Thank you. I shall now put the sub-amendment to the vote. Will all those in favor of the sub-amendment please raise their voting cards? Thank you. Anyone against? No. Any abstentions? Two abstentions. Thank you. The sub-amendment is adopted. We will now consider the main amendment as amended. Does anyone wish to speak against the amendment? No. So I would like to ask the opinion of Mr. Aldag. John, please, you have the floor.
I support this amendment.
Thank you. Now I put amendment as amended to the vote. Will all those in favor of the amendment as amended please raise their voting cards? Thank you. Against? No. One. No against. Any abstentions? 1, 2 abstentions. Yeah, 2 abstentions. Amendment 3 as amended is adopted. We will now vote on paragraph 29 as amended. Anyone against? No. Those in favor? In favor. Thank you. Abstentions? No abstentions. Paragraph 29 as amended is agreed to. Thank you. Now I call Mr. Akor from Belgium to propose amendment 4 to insert a new paragraph after paragraph 29. As we know, Mr. Akor is absent. You want to take floor, please?
Oui, s'il vous plaît.
Yes, please.
Merci. Oui, il faut excuser M. Benachour, il est dans une autre commission. Et donc, je voudrais présenter cet amendement. En fait, cet amendement, nous souhaiterions rajouter un paragraphe qui encourage les États participants de l'OSCE à s'aligner sur le niveau d'ambition établi par l'Union européenne dans sa directive 2019/904 relative à la réduction de l'incidence de certains produits en plastique sur l'environnement, d'une part, en adoptant les mêmes interdictions que celles qui sont définies dans ce texte, d'autre part, en y rajoutant une interdiction des sacs en plastique à usage unique, qui sont pour nous un non-sens sur le plan environnemental.
Thank you. Does anyone wish to speak against Amendment 4? No one. Mr. Aldak, please, you have the floor.
I once again support this amendment.
Thank you. Now I shall put Amendment 4 to the vote. Will all those in favor of Amendment 4, please raise your voting cards. Thank you. Against? Abstentions? No. Amendment? Sorry. Amendment is adopted. Again, I call Mr. Lecam from France to propose Amendment 5 to paragraph 30. Mr. Lecam, you have the floor.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. Cet amendement vise à préciser l'importance de la réduction à la source dans la lutte contre la pollution des microplastiques et nanoplastiques. En effet, la baisse de la production plastique doit aller de pair avec un changement de consommation, d'habitude, de pratique, et à la mise en œuvre de barrières contre la diffusion polluante, notamment dans les océans ou dans l'air. Je vous remercie.
Thank you. Does anyone wish to speak against Amendment 5? No. Mr. Aldag, what's your opinion?
Yeah, I would again like to thank my colleague from France for this amendment. I believe that it clarifies the intent and strengthens the overall clause, so I support this.
Thank you. Now I shall put Amendment 5 to the vote. First, I ask who are in favor of the Amendment 5, please raise your voting cards. Thank you. Against? 1. Abstentions? No. Amendment 5 is adopted. Now we will vote on paragraph 30 as amended. Anyone against? No one. In favor? Thank you. Abstentions? 1 abstention. Thank you. Paragraph 30 as amended is agreed to. Now I call again Mr. Achor, but in that case, our colleague from Belgium, Madame Kauchi. Sorry if I pronounce wrong. You have the floor, please. You can move this amendment.
Oui, merci. Je vous excuse évidemment puisque je suis novice ici à l'ESC. Donc, ce sont mes premières présentations d'amendements. C'est bien Madame Gaouchi. Voilà, en fait, nous souhaiterions rajouter un nouveau paragraphe qui exhorte les États participants de l'ESC à tout mettre en œuvre pour faire aboutir les négociations en cours sous l'égide de l'ONU en vue de l'adoption d'un traité international juridiquement contraignant contre la pollution plastique. Je vous remercie.
Thank you. Does anyone wish to speak against Amendment 6? No. Mr. Aldag, what's your opinion of that?
I support this amendment.
Thank you. I shall now put Amendment 6 to the vote. Please vote, raise your voting cards if you are in favor of the Amendment 6. Thank you very much. Against? No one. Any abstentions? One. Amendment 6 is adopted. We now come to paragraph 31 to 35. Does anyone want a separate vote of any of these paragraphs? No. So we will take paragraph 31 to 35 together. Anyone against? No. Those in favor? Thank you. Abstentions? No. Paragraph 31 to 35, agreed to. So I propose now formal move to a vote on the draft resolution as amended. Would those in favor of adopting the draft resolution as amended please raise their voting cards? Thank you. Against? No? Any abstentions? No abstention. The draft resolution as amended is adopted. So I would like to thank Mr. Aldag John for his excellent job. I wish all the best in your future endeavor, but I think you made really a great job, and it was very important supplementary item that we have adopted. Thank you very much. So, dear colleagues, now we will consider the draft resolution on a structured set of rules of regular performance audit of the OECD Parliamentary Assembly. I would now like to give the floor to the sponsor of this supplementary item, Ms. Karambies from Cyprus. Ms. Karambies, please, you have the floor.
First of all, Mr. President, let me congratulate you about the excellent work you are doing at this committee. You and the rapporteur, Mrs. Gudrun Gudler, bravo for all the hard work you are putting in this committee, both of you. Thank you. Now, about the supplementary item on a business audit for the Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe. On the first day of our annual session, dear colleagues, the Standing Committee adopted the conducting of a business audit for this year. This is a very strong signal that this Assembly wants more transparency regarding its finances, a strong signal that a business audit should be mainstream into our annual financial audit. Dear colleagues, this is exactly the aim of this supplementary item, to establish that a business audit that will complement the current financial audit is carried out in the OSCPA at regular intervals. It recognizes that other international organizations and parliamentary assemblies have clear sets of rules for the process of performance audit so that we can make sure that our budget is used not just legitimately, but also in the most efficient manner. Dear colleagues, we cannot go to participating states in the context of elections observation or other missions, preaching about the significance of transparency and accountability if we do not have the highest possible accountability and standards ourselves. A business audit will be an examination of whether organizations are operating in accordance with the principles of economy, efficiency, and effectiveness, and whether there is room for improvement. It also provides that a representative of the auditors takes part once a year in a standing committee meeting, if so required, to report on their findings and recommendations so that we can hear directly from them like we often do in our national parliaments. Dear colleagues, I do hope that this supplementary item that supports transparency, efficiency, will find its way to the plenary with your support and vote. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, dear Carolumbius. I have no names on the speaker list, so we move to consideration of amendments. Also, I have to announce that no amendments have been proposed to the draft resolution. We are still required to vote on every paragraph. We will now take all the paragraphs 1 to 9 together. Does anyone want a separate vote of any of these paragraphs? No. So we will take paragraph 1 to 9 together. Anyone against? No. Those in favor? Thank you. Any abstentions? 2 abstentions. 3 abstentions. Thank you. Paragraph 1, 5. 5 abstentions. For the sake of protocol and fair calculation, I have to announce. So 5 abstentions. Paragraph 1 to 9 agreed. I propose that we now formally move to a vote on the draft resolution. Would those in favor of adopting the draft resolution please raise their voting cards? Thank you. Who are against? No. Any abstentions? 4 abstentions. Thank you. The draft resolution is adopted. Thank you.
Thank you, dear colleagues. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Thank you, dear
Indeed.
Rina.
Thank you.
All the best. Dear colleagues and friends, now we will consider the draft resolution on greater exploitation of the potential of science diplomacy for international cooperation and active peace policy. As far as I know, Madam the reader, who is one of the co-sponsors, is absent. In her absence, I would like to move this supplementary item, Mr. Hajiani Kriakos, who is a co-sponsor of this supplementary item. Mr. Hajiani, please, you have the floor. If you want to take the podium, or you can take from your seat. Okay, come. Thank you. Yes, please. Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
If the reader arrives, of course, you will be replaced by her for sure.
Of course.
But
yes,
you can take a floor.
because Daniela is the house sponsor. Yeah. So thank you very much. Congratulate also for your excellent work here. Dear colleagues, firstly, I would like to thank Daniela de Riber for the cooperation, for the excellent cooperation we had when drafting this supplementary item, and to thank her for her leadership in this regard. I would particularly like to highlight the 2 fields of interaction between science and diplomacy. Firstly, diplomacy for science, which entails the use of diplomatic actions to facilitate international scientific collaboration or enabling the establishment of international research infrastructures. And secondly, science for diplomacy, which refers to the use of science as a soft power to advance diplomatic objectives, for example, for building bridges between nations and creating goodwill on which diplomatic relations can be built. We have a lot of examples from the Cold War period where we had diplomacy only through science. For science diplomacy to be able to flourish, we need academic freedom. The freedom to teach and conduct research in an academic environment. Academic freedom is fundamental to the mandate of education and research institutions to pursue truth, educate students, and disseminate knowledge. In academia, the freedom of research is also so fundamental. In teaching, academic freedom is fundamental to the protection of the rights of educators. In research and scholarship, it is critical to advancing knowledge. These freedoms is not guaranteed, unfortunately, across the OSCE region. And for science diplomacy to succeed, we need to facilitate support for women in all degree courses, access to professional positions in research and university administration, and research funding projects. These prerequisites are also not present across the OSCE region. As parliamentarians, we must do something about it. Dear colleagues, in the OSCE area, there seems to be little room even for science diplomacy due to current tensions that have arisen after the Russian invasion in Ukraine. Against the current backdrop, we must admit that science diplomacy also has some limitations. The requirements of being employed only for the benefit of humanity and not allowing it to become a tool that plays into the hands of autocrats and dictators that seek to end their international isolation. Also, another fundamental aim is to include civil society in the work of science and research. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, dear Kyriakos. Now, I open floor for debate. We have only one speaker on my list, who is Mr. David Stockmiller from Austria. And I do suggest Mr. Stockmiller to limit your speech to 3 minutes. Is it okay? So, please, you have the floor. David.
Thank you very much, dear Chair, dear colleagues. Thank you very much. I would like to thank my colleague from Germany, Danielle, for this important and timely resolution. And on this way, we wish her all the best. And I hope really she is going best and nothing serious. I really hope that she will be very quick back to us here. And thanks you, Kyriakos, for your presentation. Science diplomacy is not something we talk about often here, especially when so many pressing issues demand our attention in times like this. But let us not be mistaken. This is a very important resolution because it addressed the nexus of science and policy, and therefore the nexus of fact-based evidence and policy. The science on climate change caused by human activities. Especially, but not exclusively, because of our dependence on fossil fuels, has been understood for decades. The greenhouse effect was discovered in 1824. The concept of climate change first used in 1896. We have known that CO2 levels in the atmosphere were rising to dangerous levels since at least 1957. The science of the climate crisis is today as clear as it has ever been, but it is not new. this crisis is caused by human activities, not natural factors, is backed up by over a century of evidence. Ignoring this consensus among over 96% of all scientists is quite simply climate denial. So the science has been there for a long time. What about the diplomacy? I could ask you. The IPCC was founded in 1988. The first COP conference was held in 1995. The historic Paris conference took place last 10 years ago in 2015. So dear colleagues, it seems clear to me that on issues like the climate crisis, we have delayed for far too long. The diplomacy was, and in many ways still is, the cards behind the science. So I will vote, and we will vote in favor of this very important resolution because it is preciously but addressing this gap between science, evidence, on one hand, and us as policymakers on the other hand. The climate crisis is a generational challenge that will not disappear anytime soon. It is also won't be the last such challenge. In all these cases, the imperative is clear: give science a louder voice, give them a bigger seat at the table, and this is our responsibility today, tomorrow, and also always. Thank you very much, dear colleagues, and we are very happy to have this resolution. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Stogmuller. Dear colleagues, as far as we know, there is no amendments have been proposed to the draft resolution.
Do you want to wait? She's coming in five minutes.
Who?
Dr.
Daniela, she will come in.
Yeah,
2
but
3 minutes.
okay. But before going to the formally voting, but I would like to ask Mr. Kyriakos if he has any comment on what has been said by our colleagues. Okay, please, Mr. Kyriakos, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. I think the issue is clear. The initiative came from the generally also from the EU, but from the academia. And the academia try all the time to support the free or to fight for the freedom of science, the freedom of research, and this is a big problem in these days because they are using the most of the autocrats and the states where it's not without a big democracy standards. They are using the science just for other purposes than the purpose for science. And for this reason, we need to go ahead and support the freedom of science as a principle. And we have to support it also as fundamental for our principles under OSCE region. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kyriakos, Gianni. Now, as I already mentioned, no amendments have been proposed to the draft resolutions. We will vote on every paragraph. We will now take all the paragraphs from 1 to 28 together. Does anyone want a separate vote of any of these paragraphs? One, please.
Which paragraph?
Which paragraph do you like to be voted separately?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Paragraph 12, please.
In that case, we will take.
And
Thank you. In that case, we will take paragraph from 1 to 11, and then we will have a separate vote on the paragraph 12. Is it correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, thank you. So, paragraph 1 and paragraph 11. Anyone against? No one. No one is against. Those in favor? Thank you. Any abstentions? One abstention. So paragraph 1 to 11 is adopted. Agreed.
Now we'll do
Thank you.
12.
Yeah, now we will vote on separate vote for paragraph 12. Please, if you want to take something, you can take floor. No. So I will put paragraph 12. Who are in favor of paragraph 12, please raise your voting cards. In favor. Thank you. Against? 2 against. Abstentions? No abstention. One abstention. So paragraph 12 is agreed.
So
Now
13 to 28.
Yeah. Now we will take the paragraphs from 13 to 28 together. It is already decided. No one asked for separate vote, so I will put to the vote. Anyone against paragraph 13 to 28? No. In favor? Thank you. Any abstentions? 1 abstention. Paragraph from 13 to 28 agreed. Now I propose that we now formally move to a vote on the draft resolution. Would those in favor of adopting the draft resolution please raise their voting cards? Thank you. Against? Against. No one is against. Any abstentions? No one. No one. Thank you. The draft resolution is adopted. So, Madam, the reader just arrived, but it is good that in your absence, even in your absence, our committee adopted your supplementary item. Of course, it will be interesting to listen to you, and you have the floor. Maybe you say a few words about your supplementary item. Please, Madam the reader.
Thank you, Azai. Liebe Kolleginnen und Kollegen, ich werde Deutsch sprechen und ich bin sehr dankbar, dass dieser Antrag hier eure Zustimmung gefunden hat. Mir war dieser Antrag auch deshalb besonders wichtig, weil wir ihn überfraktionell behandelt haben und ich möchte dem Kollegen Kyriakos noch mal ganz herzlich danken, hier diese Anliegen vertreten zu haben. Warum ist dieser Antrag so wichtig? In Zeiten des Krieges und der Krisen, durch die wir gerade gehen, die nicht nur die OSZE, sondern ja auch viele Länder, die irritiert sind durch den russischen Aggressionskrieg gegen die Ukraine betrifft, ist ein Zeichen der Hoffnung besonders wichtig. Und alles, was sich im Bereich der Wissenschaft und der Bildung befindet, ist etwas, was uns hoffnungsfroh stimmen sollte. Dass junge Menschen Austauschprogramme an den Universitäten durchleben können, dass sie davon profitieren können, macht mich jedenfalls sehr viel optimistischer, wenn ich einen Blick auf die Zukunft unserer Kinder und Kindeskinder werfe. Es geht aber nicht nur um Bildung und Ausbildung bei diesem Supplementary Item. Es geht auch darum, dass wir Innovationen befördern können, soziale wie technologische Innovationen. Die sind auch deshalb besonders notwendig, weil wir ja nicht nur Kriege und Krisen durchleben, sondern auch Klimakatastrophen abwenden müssen. Andere Katastrophen, die wir noch gar nicht wissen, müssen auch durch wissenschaftliche Ressourcen gestärkt und bewältigt werden. Das ist mir besonders wichtig. Und deshalb will ich an dieser Stelle, ich entschuldige mich, dass ich nicht von Anfang an dabei sein konnte. Ich habe gleichzeitig meinen Supplementary Item in dem ersten Committee verteidigt. Da ging es noch mal darum, nur damit Sie auch Bescheid wissen, dass ich Ihnen nicht einfach boshaft ferngeblieben bin. Da ging es auch darum, dass wir den Krieg Russlands gegen die Ukraine auf das Schärfste verurteilen, gleichzeitig aber Belarus und die Republik Moldau und die anderen Nachbarländer mit in den Blick nehmen. Es geht immer also auch darum, hoffnungsvoll in die Zukunft zu blicken und motiviert zu bleiben, liebe Kolleginnen und Kollegen. Und diesen guten Segen, auch wenn es schwer ist bei all den Krisen, die wir durchwandern, nehmen Sie bitte diesen guten Geist, den Sie hier heute mitgetragen haben, auch in Ihre nationalen Parlamente. Ich glaube, das ist sehr wichtig und sollte uns hoffnungsfroh stimmen. Vielen Dank.
Thank you very much, dear Daniela. It was really very much interesting, I would say. And in your absence, Hajiani really submitted very well. You have to thank him.
Yes.
So, dear colleagues,
I
by
already
that,
did it.
it was the last item in our agenda. I want to thank all of you. I was so pleased working together with you for the last 2 days. And a small announcement for tomorrow. As you know, tomorrow will be the last session of our committee meeting, and tomorrow we will conduct the election of committee officers at 9 a.m. I would like kindly ask you to be here no later than 9 a.m. And also another reminder is that the deadline for submission, the candidacy for any position of the committee is today at 6 p.m. So I wish all the best. See you tomorrow. Thank you again for your close cooperation.